Next up is a mighty oak.
Branden Kunath, Staff Sergeant.
Hoorah!
Hoorah! That's right. He's so awesome, the mic doesn't work.
So I was going to steal my joke, because anytime you give a microphone to a Marine infantryman, three things are going to happen. Either he's going to lose it, break it, or it doesn't work. Or he's going to turn it into a weapon. So, obviously, you know which one happened. So, weapon is out of the option. Let me boot this bad boy up. All right, there we go. All right, so Tom gave me the gracious opportunity to come out here and talk to you guys. And the key that we're going to talk about today is courage. What it is and what it means and so much more. My bio's in that wonderful paper. Tom forced me to put it in there, so if you want to read it, it's in there. But I'm a retired Marine infantry guy. I was medically retired after 14 years. I did 7 deployments. 6 of those were in between Iraq and Afghanistan. Some were better than others, but definitely some bad ones. Places like Fallujah, Helmand Province, some other nasty areas that I bounce around in. Can everybody hear me good?
Not really.
All right. There we go. All right. God said, let there be sound.
There you go.
Good. All right. So, what is courage? There's many different definitions out there. Some will say that it's doing something in the face of fear. Some other people might say it's doing something in the absence of fear. But I want to say it's doing something in that presence of fear, knowing that, one, you can get hurt, you can die, whatever it may be. Facing that grief and pain, that's what courage is. There's many stories, military stories of guys of great courage. There's Medal of Honor recipients. I mean, they named a street after one, John A. Basilone, and I mean, talk about courage. But the big courage that I want to talk about is Jesus. I mean, he's the epitome of courage. Somebody that was ridiculed and beaten and just torn up. Now, I struggled for a long time as I grew up as a Christian, and I became a Marine, and an infantry Marine. I was a machine gunner, a knuckle-dragging machine gunner. And I struggled for a long time balancing those two. Because I've thought for a long time, you can only be one of the other. It's either I'm on this side of the fence or the other. Especially as I started deploying downrange and doing some of the things that we were doing. People started questioning, well, if I'm a Christian, am I allowed to kill? And it's real simple. If you go back into the Bible and look at how the commandments are written and everything, it's bad theology of how it's explained. It's not explained in the Bible as killing. It's murder. There's a big difference there. Until I got that explained to me, it never really clicked. And I struggled with that for a long time. Trust me, I was the machine gunner of machine gunners. I did some pretty bad things that I'm not proud of. I've got 2 kids and a gorgeous wife. I'm on my 3rd marriage right now. If that could give you a kind of a timeline and testimony of the bad things that I've done. We talked about PTSD earlier. I kept hearing it. And let's talk about that real quick in relation to courage. PTSD. Let's take the disorder out of it. PTSD. When you actually look at it, it's when your body reacts normal to an abnormal situation. The key word in there is when your body reacts normally to that abnormal situation. So if my body is doing what it's meant to do, how do I have a disorder? It's post-traumatic stress. It's a chapter in their timeline of your book that you're having problems and that you're going down a dark road or whatever it may be. But it's not a disorder. So I want to pull that out immediately. You know, we as Marines, and I know there's Army guys and a couple other guys here, we hold words true of like honor, courage, commitment. But it takes a lot of courage to uphold those values and those words, right? But at the same time, we'll turn around and just completely lose all of our morals and go do some of the worst of the worst. Whether it's cheating on a girlfriend, cheating on a wife, having multiple affairs, as I did, and so on. So where does the courage go into that, of upholding that honor and courage and commitment? We talk about Jesus being courageous. I grew up in a Baptist church in a small town in Kentucky, and I grew up that typical Bible school Jesus. We call it a marshmallow Jesus. Very soft, very kind, the white flowing gowns and all that good stuff, right? That's what most of us know about it. But there's a great book out there by John Eldredge called Beautiful Outlaw that really pinpoints who Jesus actually was. He was an outlaw. He was a rebel. He stirred the pot on purpose. He would go into temples and flip tables and shout as loud as possible, because instead of the temple being used as it should have been used, it was being used to trade goods and sell things, exchange money. I mean, there's nothing but great stories in the Bible that it expresses how courageous Jesus was. And if we're going to follow anybody to have courage, that's the person that I want to follow. Jesus set out to change how people viewed Christianity. Instead of living by day-by-day culture, he wanted to go around to show and express what God's love actually is out there and what we have in store for us. Now, I heard Tom kind of steal the question that he proposed to me earlier. But does being a believer of Jesus Christ make me more or less courageous as I am right now? Especially as strictly as Marines, we tend to hold everything on our own and try to take care of everything on our own. That we can fix it on our own. That was me for many years. In 2013, I kind of hit my rock bottom. At a point where I knew I couldn't do it anymore. And I ended up I lost a 62-man platoon that I was in charge of. And I ended up at a place called Wounded Warrior Battalion. And I went from being the top tier guy in charge to nothing. And I was lost. Where was my courageousness again? Where was my purpose? Where was my drive? I didn't have it anymore. It was just me. And that's how a lot of us try to do it. We try to do it on our own, but that's not even the case at all. That's not being courageous whatsoever. If I'm going to try to do it on my own, it doesn't make any sense. The only way I can do it is to be courageous through God and having a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's the only way. You know, there's a statement out there that God will not give you anything that you can't handle. Has anybody heard that before? Again, bad theology. Because if that was true, and if God wouldn't give me anything that I can't handle, why would bad things happen? And why would there be acronyms such as PTSD, MST, and so forth? The thing is, He won't give you anything that you can handle that you can't handle by yourself. But with Him, all things are possible. So that's where people get mixed up sometimes. Now, why not just do drugs and drink and watch pornography and do all those wonderful things. Because in a Marine's mind, because that's pretty much all I know, I grew up in an Army family, and I really thought that in the Army, if I joined the Marines, all I was going to do was go to barbecues. And that's all I see my dad do. It was pretty impressive. But in the Marines, we kind of get this man image contorted a little bit. I know in the last event that we were here, I spoke about it briefly. But a Marine, in most people's minds, is the guy that can run the fastest, shoot the best, lift the most weights, and get the most girls, and drink the most before passing out. That's completely wrong. How does that make sense? If I'm going to be a good father and a good role model and a good leader, how does those traits carry over? There's a couple of verses in the Bible that I'm going to read to you guys. But before I hit on it, I got to hit a disclaimer because this always comes up. The Bible says nothing about drinking as far as it being good or bad. There's a key phrase in there, and it's drunkenness, an addiction, placing something before your relationship with God. That's the key portion right there. So the Bible doesn't say that drinking is bad. It's just how do you do it? So in Ephesians 5:18, and do not be drunk with wine, in which dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. 1 Corinthians 6:12, all things are lawful for me, but things are not helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. That's where putting idols in front of other things, in front of God, comes into place. When I put that bottle, because I drank every single day when I came back. Literally, every single day. And when I put that bottle or the 6, 12, 24 pack of beer in front of my family, in front of my relationship with God, that I completely turned my back on, that's where I started screwing up. Courage. Where do I get my strength to have courage? It's very simple, through Jesus Christ. Through Him, all things are possible. And as Isaiah 40:31, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And I know I heard it earlier, but how do I deal with the bad days? How can I look at all the bad things that go on in life and still have that relationship with God and believe in Him? It's simple. John 16:33. I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this word you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. I know I'm out of time. Any questions? Yes, sir. Here you go again, Tom.
Branden, quite a testimony. My question to you is, how did you turn your life around?
One simple choice. I chose to stop living for myself and living for God. That was it was one choice. It wasn't a period of events or anything. And if I can take a moment, because everybody's probably wondering what the banners are for and who's serving California and everything is, I work for a faith-based nonprofit right now that literally changed my life around. We provide PTSD reintegration for veterans. We're a peer-to-peer group. All the guys that run the program are combat veterans, and we speak from the heart. We don't have any degrees or any craziness like that. We speak from where we came, where we were, where we've been. That's how we get that point across. The easiest way to relate to another combat vet is a guy to sit there and poke you in the chest and be like, I know where you've been, I know how you feel, but this is where you're screwing up. Because see, a lot of guys want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear what they need to hear. And that's where the problem is. You go to the VA and some other places, they're going to give you thousands and thousands of pills, but they're not going to give you any end state. They're not going to give you any reason. And they're just gonna, it's just a wall for you. But what worked for me was making that one choice, to stop living for myself and know that there's a bigger cause, to humble myself and understand that I am a mere spot in this universe that we have. I play a small role. But my role is very vital, though. Everybody's role is vital, whether you believe it or not. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah. In asserting your leadership over men in combat, what kind of balance did you strike in terms of your being a Christian?
At that time, when I was in the heat of the moment, downrange, it was kill, kill, kill. That's where I struggled at. When I spoke about either one side of the fence, well, I was completely on this side of the fence. And that's what it ultimately led me to come straight back home and stay on this side of the fence, because I didn't balance it. It's very easy to get wrapped up in that kill, kill mentality, to be the strongest, toughest, meanest, you know what, at that time. And then when we come back, because that's the way we're trained, that's our learned behavior, we immediately come back, and now I'm yelling at my kids the same way I yell at my Marines. I'm yelling at my wife the same way I yelled at my Marines during a firefight or whatever it is. Because that's where it's going to start, is where you balance it at. You can't play one side of the fence and expect to come home and be on both sides. It doesn't work that way. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, in other words, how much did you communicate your faith to the guys under you?
Not at all. Not at all. We heard his question. How much did I communicate with my guys as being a Christian? Not at all. We didn't talk about that stuff. I would do things, what I call a karma prayer. I would pray for good outcomes because I knew something bad happened, or something was about to happen, or I might have done something wrong. So I prayed for a selfish benefit to basically help me out. I didn't really start coming in to be a good, strong Christian until December 2013, when I rededicated my life to Christ, and I received a relationship with Him. Because, like I said, I grew up in the church. The church was right across the street from my house. Pastor Mark Judd, who is the older brother of the Judds country group, that was my pastor growing up. And see, I went to church because it was the thing to do. It's what my parents made me do. I never understood it. I went to vacation Bible school and the whole nine. I understand the Bible. I know the stories in it, but I didn't have the relationship with God. So when I spoke to Him, I'm pretty sure He listened to me, because He ended up having me here. But I didn't have that relationship with Him. So I know some of those prayers that I shook my fist at Him at because I wasn't getting my way, they went unanswered on purpose, because I didn't have that relationship with Him. Does that answer your question, sir?
I'm back in the Korean War. I'm wondering, I'm getting at policy. What is the policy now in our military in terms of how much you can share, how much you can communicate about your faith, particularly to guys that you're in charge of?
You can, I mean, what's strictly in the community, in the infantry community, you can pretty much talk amongst each other free reign. You can tell them anything you want, and they're going to receive anything they want to receive from you. That's probably definitely a better question for some of the chaplains, but me particularly, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it because we were in the meat. We were right in the meat and potatoes of doing some pretty gnarly things. And half the time, I'll be honest with you, we were too tired to even think about it. Working almost 20 hours a day, and then the 4 hours that you're up, you get to sleep for about an hour because you got to wake back up and go back on watch, clean some gear, redo ammo, or whatever it is. So it gets lost. It's easy to get lost. And I'll be honest, it's easy to just brush it to the side.
Would Jesus be a good Marine?
Would Jesus be a good Marine? He'd be an excellent Marine.
What rank would you give him?
Put me on the, he's going to be a staff sergeant. Anything else? All right. Well, I thank you so much for your... Perfect ending. So I just want to say thank you so much to Tom and everybody for showing up and allowing me to be up here. It's been a blessing. It honestly has. My wonderful, as usual, Marines, infantrymen, and technology, they don't mix very well. So just thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.